Hi, this is a short tutorial just to show you the basics of how to open a document, quick look at all the tools. It's really for those of you who've never used Flash before. When you actually come to open Flash, this is the screen you'll see. You must make sure you actually open this ActionScript 3, because if you open these ones up, you won't be able to use the things you need to use for animation. It will really confuse you and you wonder what's going on. So make sure you open ActionScript 3. And the next thing you really must do is to look at the size. This is the default size for Flash. It really is tiny. What you want to change it to is the high definition resolution, which is 1920 by 1080. And that is what is used in YouTube, Vimeo, and for all the TV resolutions. Obviously, if you have a client, then you may ask them what is the resolution they want you to use. But if you haven't got a client and we're doing a college project, this is the size I want you to use. So if it doesn't fit in, you can always make it fit in window, 50%, whatever you prefer. So when you open up, you'll have an untitled document, and when you see the little asterisk there, but that means it hasn't been saved. And when you don't save, that's when you're working in cyberspace somewhere and Flash panics and can sometimes crash. So always make sure you save straight away and as you go along. So if we say File, Save As, and I'm just gonna call it Test and save it on the desktop for now. So now that is actually saved. You have the right size. Frames per second for animation, we should stick at the 24 frames per second frame rate. So just to show you that on the timeline, that means that up to there is 1 second. So all those frames adds up to 1 second of animation. The timeline is where you actually work on and you add time, as for the name called timeline. The stage is where you actually input things onto and you actually see everything being acted upon. So a bit similar to the stage in a theatre. The properties, it will highlight whatever you're selected. So I've selected the stage at the moment, so it has all the stage properties. The colour, so you can change the colour of the stage, the size, frames per second. So if I actually selected a frame, you'd see the properties change to the frame. Now you can label your frame, so you may this be maybe scene 1, and you'll get a label on here. And if you insert a frame along the timeline, that means everything stays the same within that frame. So it's either right click insert frame, or if you want to make a change, then it's insert keyframe. Keyframes make changes, always remember that. Now if you like shortcuts, the shortcut for inserting a frame is F5 and the shortcut for inserting a keyframe is F6. Okay. Right, so there's also the tool, all the tools along here. There's layers here. If you're used to using programs like Photoshop, you'll understand the use of layers. So you can draw some things, say maybe the background on one layer, and then you can select this little icon here and insert another layer to draw on top of that. So let's say that would be background, and then layer 2 maybe maybe a tree, or say a road. Another thing I'd always advise is to name your layers. Yeah, it's really important. You won't know where you are if you don't. And when you get lots of layers, you can also add a new folder and name the folder. So you may have a character and all the details and information you have for that character in one folder. You may have the background elements in one folder, or the environment elements. So once you get lots of layers, you may want to organize them with using your new folder. The way to do that would be, let's say this is environments, so all the details of what's going on in the background, and then I can select these. I select Shift to select both and drag them in. So now all my environment layers are inside a folder. Okay. Didn't mean to do that, just meant to make a new layer. So if you close your folder, you can then make a new layer. So let's have a look at the library. The library is where everything that you bring in to Flash goes into. So it's all stored inside Flash. You don't have to worry, like if you're in Premiere or After Effects, where you have to make sure your files are located in the same place, otherwise it loses them. With Flash, they're all stored inside. Also, later on I'll be talking to you about when you draw something and you turn it into a symbol, all your symbols will be here, but we will talk about that in the next tutorial. So let's say I want to import something. So if you go to File, Import, Import to Library, and I'm going to go to Desktop and let's bring in a little car. So I now have this car JPEG. I would usually actually draw that, but there may be some things you may bring in. You may have drawn them in Photoshop, so maybe you want to bring it in from there, or Illustrator even, whatever you prefer. So if I select the layer where I want to bring this into, you can see now it's in there and it's in the library. If you notice, there is a background on this. If I actually change, if I go to Properties and change the background colour, can you see it's actually got a white background? So that wouldn't be any good really for bringing it in. We'd have to take that into Photoshop and take the background away and turn that into a PNG. Wasn't really going to do this, but I think as we're here, I might as well show you that's something that could be quite helpful for you to actually know how to do this. So if I now open the car, go to Desktop, and then what I can do is in Photoshop you have a quick selection tool. So I select that, I double click the background, and that takes away the lock. Just close it up. You can see the history. And then I can use this selection tool just to go around. It's gone around too much. Command D to deselect that. So maybe I'll use the magic wand, it might be easier. Yeah, straight away, got it. So now I can just delete that just by selecting delete. And now I have a transparent background, but to keep that transparency, I now have to save this as a PNG. So select this and find PNG and select save. Okay. So now I can quit Photoshop. I've got rid of that background. So I'll get rid of this. I'm going to go into Library and I'll take that to the bin. Just click the bin. And I'll File, Import, Import to Library. And I want my PNG, not my JPEG. So that's just a nice little quick look into Photoshop as well. So you can then actually see, if I did actually click on the stage, I can actually change the colour. Now, you can see whatever you have in the background, you may have a background image or something in the background. Your car will look like it's meant to be there rather than having a white box around it. So there's some really quick things for you to know about. Also, the layout you can change. You can, maybe you think actually the tools are being there very odd. Whoops. Let's go. So you don't want to do that. If you go to Workspace, go back to Reset Essentials if anything like that happens. There you go. All I wanted to do is bring this tool palette over, so you see you have to be careful. Click it onto there. So I have my tools over here. So you can change around, but as you saw when I reset the workspace, you can go to Window, Workspaces, and you can actually choose any other different layouts that you might prefer. So there's an animator layout. It's very different. I think personally it becomes a bit crowded. It doesn't give you enough space to work on, but you can, as you can see, you can move these around. We've got Classic, which is really old school Flash, how it used to be. Yeah, so have a little play around and find what you prefer to use. So that is really a really quick, short tutorial on how you open up. So you must open up an ActionScript 3 file. You should always change your size to HD resolution, 1920 by 1080. Don't leave it as the default because it'll be so small. And use your layers. Make sure you name your layers effectively. If you get lots of layers, you don't need to use folders. Not everyone does, but if you wanted to, you could then use folders to organise yourself more effectively. Maybe even different scenes. But often I would say maybe make each scene in a different Flash file, and then put them together using post-production after. So that's it really for now. That is your real basic introduction to using Flash. See you soon.